In problem 12.3, we are given one more scenario to think about, which is the option to rent a bike for a certain amount of money, depending on how long you rent it. So in this case, the output is the cost and the input is time measured in minutes. So the first thing they ask us to do is to fill in a table saying how much would it cost if you wanted to rent the bike for this much time. So if you wanted to rent the bike for 0 minutes, in other words, you don't rent the bike at all, well, that's going to cost you nothing. 0 is actually, right, this is important, not included in our function. So you don't have to pay anything. If you rent the bike for 10 minutes, 10 does fall into this category. 10 is between 0 and 30. So that means you're going to have to pay $2.50. And we can keep going with this. 25 is also in this set of conditions. Right? It's between 0 and 30. So for 25 minutes, you pay the same price, $2.50. For 60 minutes, I notice that 60 shows up in two places. It shows up here and here. But 60 is only included in one of these inequalities. It's included in this one with the less than or equal to 60 rule. It is not included in the other one. So that means that 60 will go here, which then means that it costs you $5 to rent the bike for 60 minutes. 75 falls between 60 and 90. So it goes there, and this costs $7.50. 130 minutes falls in here, which means that costs $12.50. And then 180 falls in here, which means that it costs $15. So we've now figured out our prices for a bunch of different inputs. And what we want to do here is now sketch a graph of this function for every value of t that is greater or at least 0 minutes. So let's start off the beginning. If you rent the bike for 0 minutes, remember 0 is not included in the $2.50 category, you pay nothing. So I'll put that right down there. But as soon as you rent it for 0 to 30 minutes, now you have to pay $2.50. Now you'll notice I'm including the 30 minutes in that category, but I'm not including the 0 minutes. That's the closed versus open circle. When you go from 30 to 60 minutes, you pay $5. From 60 to 90 is $7.50. And you can probably see where this is going. From 90 to 120 is $10. And we'll keep finishing this off here. From 120 to 150 is $12.50. And then the last one from $15 onwards, and they ask us to end at 240 minutes. That costs you $15 from 150 to 240 minutes. Now remember, in the function it actually goes all the way up to 720, but our graph ended at 240. So this is another way to represent this information. Now, to describe this in words, you could go through, kind of like we just did, and say, from this time to this time it costs this much. From this time to this time it costs a different price. Or I can try to summarize this. I notice that for the most part these are 30-minute increments. So I'm going to say you pay $2.50 to rent the bike per 30 minutes. Now that doesn't describe this perfectly, but it is kind of summarizing what's going on here. And then there's also this other rule though. If you rent the bike for 150 to 720 minutes, you pay $15. So it kind of caps out for, let's see, 720 minutes is 12 hours, so half the day. And there are other ways you could phrase that, but that's just one way to summarize it. And the last part here, determine the domain and range of this function. Now remember, domain, these are our inputs, which in this case is time. And then range in this problem is our outputs, which in this problem is cost. So, what's our domain here? Our domain for this function, if we follow the algebraic rule, they don't include the 0, is any time from 0 to 720 minutes. And we include the 720, but I'm not including that 0 because they didn't either. Our range, well, this one's a little interesting. This one we actually just have to list because it kind of just jumps around. So I'm going to have to list this. 250, 5.00, 7.5, 10, 1250, and 15. These are my possible outputs for this function. So you notice a big difference between the way that I talked about the domain, which could be any time from 0 to 720 minutes, and the range, which only had a list of 6 possible outputs.